I've definitely made this mistake. Hi, I'm Darren Wright from 12 Church, where it's all about living all in, on mission with Jesus. I recently listened to an outstanding podcast from the Kansas City Underground. They were interviewing Lucy Boston, who is, I've got it here on paper to make sure I get it right, prayer strategist with Global Catalytic Ministries, a ministry network of underground churches in the Middle East, bringing Muslims to Christ through disciple-making movements. Sounds like a pretty cool gig. Lucy shared in this interview a question that was asked to the leader of their organization about the biggest mistake they saw people making in building relationships and ultimately sharing the gospel with Muslims. Basically, the question was, when people mess up in this way, how are they messing up? What do you think the answer was? Please take a moment, maybe write it in the comment down below. What's the biggest mess up that these people had? And again, it wasn't just as they were hearing the gospel. It was also in the relationship building side of things, in the getting to know someone side of things. And the big mess up was not a technical mess up. It wasn't a knowledge mess up. It wasn't a tactical mistake. The biggest mistake he saw people making in sharing Christ and building relationships in these contexts was not showing enough joy. Not showing enough joy. Not being exuberant enough. Not making people want what they had. Not showing that there was enough difference to make the gospel or whatever it is you had appealing. Getting convicted yet? And so the question quickly arises, how do we exude joy? How do we get a proper level of exuberance without being fake? Without slapping on a plastic smile and pretending we've got it all together and everything's all good, thank you very much. How do we exhibit joy with integrity? Well, in that interview, Lucy said basically the bottom line is you need to love God. You need to crave God. You need to have a rich life with God. There needs to be some life in our prayer. There needs to be some life in our time in the Word. I'll be posting a link to this interview if you want to dig in further. What she was sharing made me think of something I heard another evangelist share. Forget who it was. But basically they said, when you as a Christian ask someone if they want to be a Christian or want to follow Jesus, what they are hearing you say in part is, do you want to be like me? Do you want to be like me? And so that makes sense that if there's a lack of joy, if there's a lack of excitement, a lack of satisfaction, lack of a lot of things, lack of peace, that it might not be that appealing to people. It's hard for me to think about joy without thinking of the fruit of the Spirit. The fruit of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. As my wife likes to point out, the fruit is singular. It's not the fruits of the Spirit, it's the fruit of the Spirit. And each piece is like a wedge of an orange. It's all one fruit. It's different aspects, different facets of the fruit of the Spirit. And joy is one of those facets of the fruit of the Spirit. Because it is the fruit of the Spirit, it is something that's produced by the Spirit, who indwells every believer and longs to control and fill and gift and empower every believer. To be filled with the Spirit means to be controlled by the Spirit, to be influenced by the Spirit, to have the Spirit bringing the life of Christ, which is described by the fruit of the Spirit, to bear into our being, into our personality, into our words and thoughts and actions. Which leads to the very obvious question, am I filled with the Spirit? What evidence is there that the Spirit's at work? Is that fruit present? Is that joy, among other things, present? I got to tell you, I'm going to be thinking about this one quite a bit. Do I display enough joy? Or do I need to go to prayer in a more intense way before I ever go outside? Do I need to get on my face and seek the face of God before any seeker sees my face? I think of the story of Moses coming out of the tent, face glowing, so he covered his face with a veil. That's a little bit more than probably we're looking at here, but the idea is the same. Is there evidence that I have an encounter with the living God? And it's not that we come off as though we're perfect, as though we've got everything together and no problems and everything figured out, but do I actually look like and act like I believe Jesus is alive? that he's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, that he's coming back, that he's got my back, that I'm on his team? Do I believe Jesus is who he said he is, and that he sent his Spirit, and his Spirit is indwelling me? That might generate some joy. I just completed recording the audio version of my book, DNA of a Christ Follower, and one of the last chapters is the trait being focused on eternity. Being focused on eternity pulls so many of the other traits together and really is a source of joy, a source of confidence, a source of satisfaction. If you want to know more about DNA of a Christ Follower, you can find a link down below. So how are you doing with joy? I've been asking myself that. And the answer to any shortfall is the work of the Spirit, the fruit of the Spirit, having contact with the Creator, having contact with Jesus, and allowing his life to flow in and then flow out. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And it turns out the joy of the Lord is a powerful tool in personal evangelism.